By the third year of my secret relationship with Vincent, he still refused to make it public. At a gathering, someone teased him, "Vincent, Aurelia is so stunning." Over the years, "You've never been tempted?" I watched him as he clinked glasses with others, a faint sense of hope stirring inside me. Leaning casually against his chair, he replied indifferently, "Don't joke around. Aurelia and I are just friends." I froze for a moment, suddenly finding everything meaningless. Yes, we're just ordinary friends. Chapter 1. The moment I said those words, Vincent seemed to glance at me. The atmosphere at the table grew awkward for a few seconds. Someone quickly broke the silence with a laugh. "That's great! A buddy of mine has been dying to ask Aurelia out." "Aurelia, should I give you his WeChat?" Before I could respond, Vincent suddenly set his glass down and walked over to stand behind my chair. He loosely placed an arm around me, casting a look at the person who had spoken. "All right, let's leave it at that. She's my only good friend, and she's a great girl, pure and all. Don't let your sketchy friends ruin her." I pushed Vincent's hand away, glancing at the now slightly embarrassed friend. "Sure, send me his contact. I might as well meet someone new." The friend hastily handed me a business card. I added the contact, then looked up to see Vincent's half-smiling, unreadable gaze. A dull ache twisted inside me. I instinctively wanted to get up and leave, but Vincent pressed down on my shoulder. He pulled out his phone and opened the camera. "Aurelia, look at the lens." The camera captured our faces. One was handsome and carefree, wearing a roguish grin. The other was pale, her eyes shadowed with an empty confusion. After snapping the photo, he uploaded it to his social media with the caption, "Cheers to friendship." I suddenly felt utterly drained. This was the third year of my relationship with Vincent, and yet, only he and I knew about it. After leaving the restroom, I stood in front of the mirror, pulling up that social media post. I left a comment under it, "Cheers to friendship." Then I left the party early. Chapter 2. Vincent called, asking where I had gone. I told him I wasn't feeling well, and he didn't press further. He simply told me to rest and hung up. I didn't return to my rental apartment but went to Vincent's place instead. Sometimes, I would spend the night there, but in the living room and other shared spaces, there was no trace of me. All my personal items were tucked away in the master bathroom. Vincent refused to make our relationship public. My private life isn't something I want on display for people to gossip about. If you can accept that, we can stay together. That was the grandiose excuse he gave me. To be honest, even if he hadn't given me a reason, I probably wouldn't have refused. After all, I owed the Xiao family and Vincent a great debt. Looking back now, it wasn't his private life he didn't want to expose. It was me. "Aurelia." I unlocked the door with my fingerprint and went straight to the master bedroom. But as I passed through the living room, I spotted a strawberry bear plush on the couch. I hadn't bought that toy. Something so childish obviously didn't belong to Vincent either. It hit me then. That social media post tonight, he must have shared it for another girl to see. Oddly, I didn't feel much sadness. After packing up my things from the master bedroom, I removed the necklace I'd been wearing for 3 years. The pendant was a ring, Vincent's gift to me, but in 3 years, I had never once worn it openly. Since it was something so inappropriate, there was no point in keeping it anymore. Chapter 3. On the third day after I left for City B, Vincent called me. I didn't answer. About half an hour later, he sent me a text. "I'll hold on to the ring for 3 days." I understood what he meant. In the past, we'd had our share of disagreements. He always opted for a cold, hands-off approach, and in the end, I would quietly resolve my feelings on my own. Over the years, we had gone from college life to the working world. I had followed him, step by step, from Shanghai to settling in Beijing. Before, I never considered giving up, but now, I was truly exhausted. I replied, "No need to keep it, throw it away." Vincent didn't respond after that. I stared at the chat screen for a while, then I blocked him. Chapter 4. Vincent didn't look happy. He poured himself another drink and downed it in one gulp. Someone brought her up again. My buddy seemed serious about her this time. He even called me in the middle of the night, saying he really likes her. Vincent suddenly set his glass down. She won't agree to it. Tell him not to waste his time. Vincent, how do you know Aurelia won't agree? Vincent lowered his head, scrolling aimlessly on his phone. Because Aurelia already has someone she likes him to death. Not your buddy. Not even a god would stand a chance. After saying that, he grabbed his pack of cigarettes and left the room, shutting the door behind him. He left the noise and chatter behind, lighting a cigarette. Vincent unlocked his phone again. The conversation still hung on Aurelia's last message. Throw it away. He took a hard drag from the cigarette, but the frustration still gnawed at him. With a bitter laugh, he typed out a sharp reply, "It's already gone." But the message failed to send. The red exclamation mark stood out starkly on the screen. She had blocked him. Vincent froze for a second, then let out a sarcastic laugh. Well, this was new. Aurelia, for once, was really trying to stand her ground against him. Fine. This time, he'd see how long she could keep it up. Chapter 5. Time flew by in City B. In the blink of an eye, a week had passed. The night before I was set to return to Beijing after my vacation, I went out with some friends. That was when I ran into an old acquaintance from high school. When Cassian entered the room, dressed in a black business suit that accentuated his tall and elegant frame, both of my girlfriends nudged me at the same time, laughing playfully. I felt a little flustered. Maybe it was the alcohol. It had made my cheeks warm. But Cassian's gaze landed on my face, direct and unrestrained. Aurelia. It's been a long time. I stood up quickly. Good to see you again, Cassian. After Cassian took a seat, one of my girlfriends tugged lightly at my sleeve. Aurelia. I only posted on my social media that you were in town for a break. Cassian liked it immediately that day. He's been living abroad for years, rarely comes back. And tonight, he's definitely here for you. I glanced at Cassian instinctively. He was slightly turned, speaking to a friend seated beside him. From this angle, I could see the sharp, smooth line of his jaw. Back in school, he'd always been reserved, a man of few words. Now, his mature demeanor carried an air of depth and intimidation. I quickly looked away and shook my head. He just said he was passing by. As if that's a coincidence. I don't believe it. When the gathering ended, Cassian offered to take me home. Before I could refuse, my two friends conveniently disappeared. Cassian hadn't been drinking, so he didn't call for a driver. Halfway back to the hotel, I got a call from a friend in Beijing. Aurelia, let's get together tomorrow night. Vincent's bringing his new girlfriend to meet everyone. It's his first time. I don't think I'll make it back in time. You guys go ahead. Don't say that. Vincent specifically asked for you to come. You're his best friend. I stared out of the car window at the glittering city lights flashing by, a faint smile tugging at my lips. We're just ordinary friends. It doesn't matter if I'm there or not. Aurelia, if there's nothing else, I'll hang up now. Without waiting for a response, I ended the call. Another call came in, but I didn't answer any of them. Gradually, my phone fell silent. The car came to a stop. Cassian turned to me. Aurelia, we're here. I didn't look at him, my gaze still fixed on the cityscape outside the window. The dazzling, hedonistic lights stung my eyes. Inside my chest, there was only a numb emptiness. Cassian. I caught my own reflection in the glass, lost and hollow-eyed. And then the words slipped out. Do you want to come up? Chapter 6. The moment the door to the room closed, Cassian cupped my face and kissed me deeply. His kiss was heavy, intense. Panic rose within me as I tried to bite him, but he caught my tongue instead. My mind went blank, as though it had exploded. My legs turned to jelly. Cassian held me firmly, pressing me against his chest. I caught a faint whiff of cedarwood, tinged with a subtle hint of tobacco. It was intoxicating. When he leaned in again, I didn't push him away, but what followed was not quite what I expected. Cassian, your hands are too rough. This isn't right. You're hurting me. Cassian, do you even know what you're doing? Sorry. Aurelia, have you never had a girlfriend before? He paused, his breath heavy, a bead of sweat dropping onto my chest. It seemed to take all his willpower to hold back. In the dim light, His chiseled features were shadowed with a mix of frustration and restraint. He seemed to smile, or maybe I imagined it. That's right. After being rejected once, I never dated again. I froze. The words hitting me like a jolt. Memories long buried came rushing back. Back in school, I had indeed turned him down. It wasn't that I hadn't felt anything for him back then. It was just, fate had other plans. Aurelia, shall we try again? Cassian brushed aside the damp strands of hair clinging to my forehead. In his dark eyes, I saw myself reflected, strange and unfamiliar, yet shy. This time, everything felt different. I clung tightly to his arm, my fingertips digging into his solid muscles. He suddenly leaned down, his movements gentle but firm, as he kissed me deeply. When it was all over, I was so exhausted that I couldn't even lift a finger. Cassian brought me half a glass of water. I drank it groggily, then closed my eyes in weariness. As I drifted off, I felt his hand holding mine. Cassian? A soft, tender kiss landed on my brow. Aurelia, good night. Chapter 7. The young woman sitting next to Vincent was stunning, the kind of beauty that immediately drew the eye. But somehow, she lacked the lasting allure of Aurelia. That seat used to belong to Aurelia. Now, with someone new in her place, the group couldn't help but feel a little unsettled. Still, this was Vincent's first publicly acknowledged girlfriend. Everyone made an effort to be warm and welcoming. Aurelia really couldn't make it back this time. Yeah, City B is so far away, it's understandable. Vincent, should we start without her? The woman beside Vincent asked curiously. Who's Aurelia? He gave a faint smile. Just a friend. Well, let's invite her next time then. I'm starving. All right. Let's eat. Vincent reached for his wine glass as the atmosphere gradually grew lively. He drank enough to feel a little buzzed. The woman beside him, after a bit of wine, became even more radiant and charming. The group's laughter and jokes filled the air. Vincent told himself it didn't matter. She wasn't here, but the world kept turning. Women, friends, they still surrounded him. With or without her, life went on. Man, what's with all the big announcements today? Who else announced something? Cassian. Back in school, he was even more popular than Vincent. Vincent felt an odd pang in his chest. What about Cassian? He posted his first social media update today. Looks like he's announcing a girlfriend. A friend handed their phone to Vincent. He saw the post immediately, old wishes fulfilled. New hopes ahead. The image was of two hands clasped tightly together. Vincent recognized it instantly. The hand in the picture, held firmly by Cassian's, was Aurelia's. On her ring finger was a deep scar. A scar Vincent had left 3 years ago in an accident. At the time, he'd consoled her, saying, "It's in the perfect spot. A ring will cover it nicely." She had been upset then, but his words had coaxed a smile from her. Later, he did buy her a ring, but from beginning to end, he never let her wear it publicly. Chapter 8. Now that hand was in someone else's, and that someone else was Cassian. Vincent let out a short laugh. It sounded amused, but perhaps it was born of sheer anger. He set the phone down and stood abruptly, his face as cold as frost. Vincent? The woman beside him looked startled and called his name softly. But Vincent didn't seem to hear her. He didn't spare her a single glance. Feeling slighted, the woman hurried after him, her voice trembling. "Can I come with you? I don't want to stay here alone." Vincent grabbed her wrist and pushed her aside with force. "If you don't want to be here, then don't ever come back." He pulled the door open and strode out, his chest heaving with an emotion that threatened to explode. Without stopping, he reached the elevator, descended to the lobby, and headed straight to his car. Only the roar of the engine grounded him slightly. What was he doing? Where was he going? He knew she wasn't in Beijing. He knew she had taken all her belongings from his apartment. He knew she was in City B now. Vincent slammed his fist into the steering wheel. The horn blared, cutting sharply through the stillness of the night. His phone buzzed unexpectedly. He answered it. Madame Xiao's voice was as poised as ever. "Vincent, when are you coming back to the family estate? Bring Aurelia with you." "That won't work right now." "Why not?" "We had a bit of a fight. She's ignoring me and even blocked me." Madame Xiao chuckled at his careless tone. All right, I'll call her. But really, what did you do to Aurelia this time? She seems truly upset. Vincent fiddled with the lighter in his hand and laughed softly. How should I know? After hanging up, he tossed the phone into the console, but his eyes fell on the necklace Aurelia had left at his apartment. The pendant held the ring he had given her. The diamond was small. Vincent thought about her upcoming birthday, November 8th. It was just around the corner. Maybe he'd buy her an 8-carat diamond ring. Then, as she wished, he'd make their relationship public. And after that, he'd propose. Chapter 9. When Cassian returned to the hotel with a few paper bags, I was wrapped in a soft, light cashmere blanket, sitting idly on the terrace. He handed me a cup of hot milk tea with the straw already inserted. This place serves the most authentic milk tea. Try it? Thank you, I said, accepting the cup and glancing up at him instinctively. City B had been overcast and rainy all day, and the temperature had plummeted. Cassian had only worn a thin trench coat when he went out, and now his ears were faintly red from the cold. You should have some too. Warm yourself up. All right. He agreed but didn't take the drink for himself. Instead, he wrapped his arms around me from behind. I took small sips of the milk tea. Cassian lowered his head, his lips brushing against my ear. It tickled, and I turned my head to avoid him, but his kiss followed, landing on my lips instead. His voice, tinged with laughter, lingered against my mouth as our kiss deepened. Didn't you say I should have some milk tea too? I opened my mouth instinctively to retort, but before I could get a single word out, his kiss grew more insistent. The milk tea fell to the side, soaking the carpet into a damp mess. But the real mess was on his shirt, the hem stained with spreading watermarks. Outside, the rain and mist blurred the view. Inside, the atmosphere was just as hazy, steeped in intimacy. I didn't dare meet his gaze. His eyes burned with an intensity that felt overwhelming. The typically reserved, composed Cassian had a side that was brimming with desire. His gaze locked on me in a way that made me turn my head, burying my face against his shoulder. Aurelia, sensing my shyness, Cassian's husky voice carried a hint of a smile. He held me tighter, but his kisses grew gentler. As my consciousness blurred, I caught our overlapping reflections in the glass, swaying until they faded into indistinct forms. After a long while, when everything had settled, Cassian emerged from the shower. Seeing me lazily leaning against the headboard, he carried me to the bathroom for a bath, then wrapped me in a robe. When drying my hair, a stray lock fell against my ear. I instinctively reached up to brush it away, but Cassian beat me to it, tucking it neatly behind my ear. Thank you, I murmured softly. Cassian sighed, exasperated yet gentle. Aurelia, are you always going to be this polite with me? I didn't know how to respond. Even after what had just happened, everything still felt unreal, like a fleeting dream. The sweetness of the milk tea lingered faintly on my lips, but my mind had wandered back to a winter night years ago. It was late after a study session, and the sky was already dark. The street was long and shadowed, with hardly a soul in sight. Cassian had appeared by chance. Hey, Aurelia, what a coincidence. He had been standing at the intersection in a black coat, his smile faint but kind. Back at school, he rarely smiled, let alone spoke much. In that moment, I was so captivated that I froze. That night, as a senior, he had walked me home. Halfway, we shared a roasted sweet potato. The wind howled as snow began to fall. Standing in the wind, he shielded me from the storm, leaning down until our foreheads brushed lightly. But he quickly pulled away. For a fleeting second, my heart trembled. Back then, I thought it was the sweet beginning of something new. But who could have known it was merely a fleeting illusion, like flowers in a mirror or the moon's reflection in water? Whether it was years ago or now, the story always seemed destined to fade. 15 minutes earlier, while Cassian was showering, I had received a call from Madame Xiao. She wanted me to return to the Xiao family home with Vincent for dinner. I declined initially, but then she mentioned Vincent's father. He had returned and wanted to see me. At the mention of his name, my chest tightened, and a deep fear crept in. I felt like a fugitive caught in the light, trembling and frozen. Even after the call ended, I couldn't shake the feeling. Years ago, just as my feelings for Cassian had begun to bloom, Madame Xiao's call had changed everything. That call had completely altered the course of my life, and those tender feelings had withered before they could take root. Now, as fate's wheel turned once more, it toyed with me mercilessly. I felt like a pathetic coward, unable to let Cassian glimpse even the shadows of my shameful past. Chapter 10. Cassian. I took a deep breath, forcing a light and casual tone. What is it? I'm heading back to Beijing. My flight's tonight. Hidden beneath the blanket. My hands were clasped tightly, trembling, my thumb unconsciously pressed against the old scar on my ring finger, the pain sharp and biting, as if I were picking at a fresh wound. But I couldn't stop. I forced a smile at Cassian. Let's not stay in touch after this. The past 2 days were mutual. Neither of us owes the other anything. Let's just pretend nothing ever happened. Before he could respond, I stood and walked toward the bedroom. I couldn't afford to stay a moment longer, fearing my tears would betray me. But Cassian grabbed my wrist firmly. Aurelia, what happened? Tell me, please. But I couldn't bring myself to say it. How could I? How could I tell him that my mother, who had worked for the Xiao family, had once seduced Vincent's father? Or that a Xiao family driver, after catching them, had tried to coerce her into sleeping with him? And when she refused, the driver, in a drunken rage, lost control and ran her down with his car. Vincent's parents had nearly divorced because of it. I had become an orphan, and yet, Madame Xiao, disregarding the past, had taken me in and supported me through school. She had even hired lawyers to win my mother's case, ensuring that the driver was convicted of intentional homicide. Her kindness weighed heavily on me, like a debt I could never repay. Back then, Vincent had never blamed me for what happened. On the contrary, he had always treated me well. If not for the past 3 years of our clandestine relationship, perhaps we really could have stayed friends for life. But now, none of us could go back. Chapter 11. I broke free from Cassian's grasp. I could feel his gaze on me, burning with intensity yet laced with pain, enveloping me entirely. But I didn't have the courage to meet his eyes. Nothing happened. I just need to go back. Back to where? Cassian gently pressed my shoulder, his hand sliding down my arms before pulling me tightly into an embrace. He buried his face in the curve of my neck. Don't go back. Aurelia, he doesn't treat you well at all. His grip tightened, as if he wanted to merge me into himself. Don't go back to him, even if it's not me. It shouldn't be him. My tears fell silently, soaking into his shirt. Cassian, I didn't know how to explain it to him. There was no future for Vincent and me, but the tangled mess between me and the Xiao family could never be unraveled. I didn't want to hurt Cassian. Deep inside, I resisted letting him know about everything that had happened to me. It was too ugly, too unspeakable. It's late. I need to catch my flight. I gripped his arm, slowly but firmly pushing him away. His eyes were red, and mine were brimming with tears as well. But I still forced a smile. Cassian, take care of yourself. He didn't reply, only reached out to gently wipe away the tears at the corners of my eyes. If you're unhappy in Beijing, tell me anytime. I nodded firmly, trying to muster another smile, but no matter how much I tried, the tears wouldn't stop. Chapter 12. Winter in Beijing was bitterly cold. The moment I stepped off the plane, a chill made me shiver, and I quickly tightened my coat around me. As I followed the crowd outside, I spotted Vincent immediately. He was tall, and his striking features were impossible to miss. Mom told me to pick you up. He walked over, grabbed my suitcase, and turned to leave without another word. After a few steps, he glanced back, throwing a curt remark over his shoulder. It wasn't my idea. I smiled faintly, my expression otherwise blank. Thanks. Vincent seemed to grit his teeth. He turned back, dragging the suitcase as his long strides carried him ahead. I didn't quicken my pace, choosing instead to walk leisurely at my own speed. By the time I reached the car, he had already loaded my luggage and was standing by the passenger side. He gave me an impatient look. Hurry up. I've got plans tonight. Instead of getting into the passenger seat, I opened the back door. Aurelia. Vincent's expression darkened, colder than Beijing's winter sky. I met his gaze calmly. Isn't the passenger seat reserved for your girlfriend? He laughed bitterly, slamming the door shut. You're unbelievable. Fine. Sit wherever you want. We didn't speak the entire drive. When we arrived at the Xiao estate, I looked up at the grand, brightly lit house. My legs felt like they were weighed down with lead, every step heavy and reluctant. Vincent stopped as well. In the twilight, he looked down at me, his tone dripping with disdain. What are you afraid of? He's not going to eat you alive. I wasn't afraid. I just didn't know how to face him, or, more precisely, how to face the man I once called Mr. Xiao. Fine, I'll leave early, and you can come with me. Vincent started walking toward the house, but I remained rooted in place. He turned back, clicking his tongue in frustration. What are you standing there for, Aurelia? Get over here. He gestured for me to follow. That motion was so familiar, just like the countless times he'd waited for me after school. Suddenly, a weight lifted from my chest. Maybe being just friends wasn't so bad after all. I smiled at him. Coming. He froze for a moment, then inexplicably glared at me, but his pace slowed down. Dinner was uneventful. Mr. Zhao's health had been poor in recent years, prompting him to consider staying in Beijing long-term. Madame Xiao remained indifferent to the idea. Their relationship had reached a breaking point, with neither warmth nor conflict remaining. And yet, that cold silence was the heaviest weight pressing on my heart. After dinner, Mr. Xiao called Vincent to the study, but Vincent stormed downstairs less than half an hour later, grabbed my wrist, and pulled me out of the house. As we left, I couldn't help but glance back. Under the warm glow of the lights, Madame Zhao's face was stoic, devoid of any expression. For a moment, my chest tightened in fear. Over the years, I had spent much time with her while living in the Xiao household. She had always been kind and gentle, but this was the first time I had seen such a chilling look on her face. Before I could dwell on it, Vincent shoved me into the car. His fury was palpable as he drove recklessly back to the apartment. When we arrived, he ordered me out of the car with a sharp tone. I had already decided I wasn't going back to that apartment. Just like our clandestine relationship, I had left it behind. I wasn't going to take it back. Not for anything. Aurelia, get out. I'm not going up there with you. I unlocked my phone, holding it firmly as I looked at him through the car door. If you force me, I'll call the police. Then call them. He leaned in, his voice dripping with sarcasm. And while you're at it, ask if it's illegal for a boyfriend to take his girlfriend home. Vincent, we're not together anymore. I never said we broke up. Is there any point to this? I laughed, though it felt more like a sigh of exhaustion than amusement. Vincent, I don't want to argue with you. I'm tired, and I want to sleep. You said you had plans tonight at the airport. Go handle them. I'll take a cab home. Vincent stood there, the night shrouding him in shadow. His gaze was deep and unreadable. After a long pause, he sighed, relenting for once. I'll drive you home, but if you refuse again, don't expect to go anywhere tonight. Aurelia. Chapter 13. I chose to remain silent. Vincent had a deeply stubborn side. Arguing with him would do me no good. When the car pulled up outside my apartment building, I thanked him and reached for the door handle to get out. But Vincent called out to me, "Your birthday is next week. On your birthday, let's settle things once and for all." I wanted to tell him it wasn't necessary. It would be fine to part ways quietly, without any dramatic closure. If we ran into each other again, it wouldn't be awkward. We could still interact with mutual friends as we always had, effortlessly. My parents said that since they're in Beijing, they want to celebrate your birthday properly. You wouldn't refuse to show some respect to your benefactors, would you? With that, I had no reason left to refuse. All right, whatever you want, I said, stepping out of the car. Vincent didn't linger, turning the car around and driving off. The winter night wind was bitterly cold. After just a few steps, the chill had pierced through me entirely. I bowed my head, tightened my coat, and quickened my pace toward the entrance. As I neared the building, I saw a tall figure standing in the shadows cast by the streetlights. The orange glow stretched his silhouette against the ground. Cassian stood there in a thin trench coat, braving the freezing Beijing wind. I didn't know how long he had been there. I stopped in my tracks, staring at him in disbelief. Cassian? As he stepped toward me, snow began to fall over Beijing. The flakes settled on his hair and shoulders, but he didn't seem to notice. Instead, he gently brushed the snow from my bangs. Time seemed to roar backward, pulling us into that winter years ago. From his coat pocket, Cassian pulled out a roasted sweet potato. Still warm, he broke it in half and handed me a piece. I stared at it, stunned, until the sweet aroma spread across my tongue as I took a bite. Tears fell before I could stop them. He lowered his head, his forehead occasionally brushing against mine. And so, under Beijing's first snow, we stood there like fools, eating the roasted sweet potato together. Aurelia. His slender fingers wiped away a small black stain from the corner of my mouth. What should I do? My family kicked me out. Why? My parents said the Gu family has never raised an irresponsible man in generations. And now, I'm the black sheep who doesn't have a home to return to. He was smiling, but his eyes betrayed no hint of humor. I felt a faint ache in my chest, a sourness spreading rapidly. Perhaps the snow was falling harder, making my vision blur. But Cassian, I don't need you to take responsibility. And I'm not even. The rest of my words were swallowed by Cassian's kiss. His lips were cold, likely from the snow melting on them, but his kiss was searing, nearly melting me like snow into water. Aurelia, you know, I love you. I don't care about any of that. He cupped my face and kissed away my tears. Tonight, I made a bet with myself. If you didn't come back, I'd try to convince myself to let go and stop bothering you. But if you came back, then this time, no matter what, I won't let you go. His gaze burned into me, yet deep in his eyes, there was a faint flicker of joy. That joy was so timid, so fragile, that I couldn't bring myself to break it. Chapter 14. As soon as we reached the entryway, Cassian kissed me again, while helping me remove my coat and scarf. He pulled me into his arms, his hands clasping tightly around my waist. Our bodies pressed together, fitting seamlessly. I noticed his uncharacteristic urgency, a side of him I hadn't seen before. Cassian, you seem impatient. His long fingers tugged up the hem of my cashmere sweater slightly. The rough pads of his fingertips grazed the soft skin at my waist. His warm palms clamped around my waist, pulling me even closer against him. His kisses were heavy and deep. I closed my eyes, rising on tiptoes to meet him. Take it easy, Cassian. We have all night. He looked down at me and smiled. For the first time since we reunited, I saw a genuine smile in his eyes. Cassian intertwined his fingers with mine, guiding them lower. Aurelia, then let's agree, every single second of this night, not a moment less. That night, the snow fell endlessly, and it melted endlessly too. Chapter 15. Vincent was the ultimate rich kid. His life was a constant swirl of indulgence, lavish parties, endless friends, and never a dull moment. But these past few days, time seemed to drag unbearably. The amusements that once consumed him felt hollow, tasteless. In the private room he always reserved on the top floor of the club, his friends were engrossed in billiards and poker, the air buzzing with their laughter and banter. But for Vincent, a suffocating boredom spread, an itch he couldn't scratch. As if he couldn't bear another second of this, he tossed aside the pool cue and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows with his phone in hand. The moment he unlocked his screen, a message came through. It was a set of photos. The images weren't high quality, but the subject was unmistakable. In the chaos of a crowded supermarket, Aurelia and Cassian stood before a shelf full of goods, smiling at each other. In one, Cassian's arm was around her waist, and in her body language, there wasn't even a hint of resistance. Vincent's eyes narrowed, hardening. The photo of their clasped hands before had made him laugh it off, dismissing it as nothing. But these photos were sharp blades, slicing through him, carving out a chunk of flesh he didn't even realize was gone until he was bleeding. As a man, one who knew what it meant to truly possess someone, he could see it clearly. They had a physical relationship, and it wasn't just once. Vincent caught his reflection in the window, red-rimmed eyes, veins bulging, a face twisted with something close to rage. He struggled to keep it together but couldn't stop himself. The phone in his hand crashed to the floor, shattering into pieces. The lively chatter in the room screeched to a halt. Everyone turned to him, startled and uneasy, but Vincent forced himself to calm down, smoothing his expression and tone as he addressed them. "Carry on. Don't stop." With that, he strode toward the door. "I'm stepping out for a bit. Don't wait up for me tonight." The door closed behind him, shutting out the noise. The hallway was empty. Vincent walked until he saw a staff member. "Give me your phone." The server hesitated, confused but obediently handed over their phone. Vincent dialed Aurelia's number. How long had he known her number by heart? He couldn't remember. It didn't matter. What mattered was hearing her voice, seeing her, taking her away from Cassian, the man who had stolen her away with nothing more than a roasted sweet potato. But Aurelia hung up the moment she heard his voice. When he called again, she didn't answer. Vincent lit a cigarette, clenching it between his teeth. He sent her a message. "Don't make me come find you." The third call. She picked up. She must have stepped away from Cassian, afraid he might overhear. Her voice was hushed, almost guilty. Vincent's heart pounded, his blood boiling, consuming him from the inside out. "Aurelia, tell Cassian you were just fooling around, that it was impulsive. Tell him you don't like him and never could. Tell him to go back abroad. I'll pretend none of this ever happened. I'll forgive you, this once, the only time." Chapter 16. On the other end of the line, there was silence. It stretched for what felt like an eternity, every second suffocating Vincent. He could hear his own breathing, his heartbeat, hammering like a drum. Finally, she spoke. "That night in City B, maybe it was impulsive, but this isn't. I liked him in high school, and liking him again now seems perfectly normal. And Vincent, we're just friends. Friends don't have the right to interfere in each other's personal choices. When I was with you, I never had your acknowledgement. Now that I'm with someone else, whatever I do is none of your concern, and I certainly don't need your forgiveness. Vincent, move on. Let's part ways on good terms." She hung up before he could respond. Vincent gripped the phone, frozen in place. Outside the window, the snow was falling in thick, endless sheets. Last year, there had been snow like this too. That time, Aurelia had been at his place. They had cooked hot pot together, eating until they were full. Afterward, she curled up on the couch to watch a drama while he lay with his head on her lap, drifting off to sleep. As he dozed, she had stolen a kiss. He had pretended not to notice, but a faint sweetness had lingered in his heart. Aurelia resembled her mother, strikingly beautiful, the kind of beauty that men wanted to keep, to marry. But back then, while he had been drawn to her, he couldn't shake his disdain for her background and the ugliness of her past. From the start, he had told her their relationship would never be public, could never be public, because deep down, he didn't want to be the subject of his friends' private jokes. Her mother seduced his father, and now Aurelia's got him too. Like father, like son, it wasn't something he could be proud of. So even as he fell for her, sometimes obsessively, he always reminded himself she wasn't someone he could marry. He thought he had everything under control. After all, the Xiao family had given her so much. She would never defy him. She had always been obedient, compliant. 3 years had made him forget that she had once been a bold and spirited girl, unafraid to let go when necessary. Now, she didn't want him anymore. Cleanly, decisively, leaving no room for retreat. Just as he had wanted, they were just friends. For the rest of their lives. Only friends. Vincent reached into his pocket and pulled out the small velvet box he carried everywhere. The 11.8-carat diamond ring was meant to be her birthday gift tomorrow. Now, it sat in the box, glittering brilliantly, mocking him. Vincent handed both the phone and the ring box to the server. "Thanks for letting me borrow your phone. And the ring, I won't need it anymore. It's yours." His tone was calm, even gentle for once. The server stared at him in shock, stammering in refusal. But Vincent had already turned and walked away. Chapter 17. On my birthday, I made plans with Cassian. I promised him that after I returned from the Xiao family, we would celebrate together, just the two of us. When he saw me off, he was wearing the black cashmere coat I had bought for him, looking exceptionally handsome. Noticing a trace of reluctance and sadness in his eyes, I stood on tiptoe and gave him a light kiss. Wait for me at home, okay? We'll have hot pot together. Cassian nodded but pulled me into his arms for a lingering kiss. When the car from the Xiao family arrived, he reluctantly let me go. As the car drove away, Cassian remained by the roadside. Snow fell steadily, blanketing the city in white. I pressed my face against the window, watching him until his figure disappeared from view, then turned away with a sigh. The Xiao family had organized a birthday dinner for me. Vincent didn't come. He had mentioned wanting to end things definitively on my birthday, but now it seemed unnecessary. After what I said on the phone, someone as proud as him wouldn't lower himself again, and that was fine. Like the wind leaving no trace, we returned to being true friends. When I got out of the car, I immediately felt something was off about the Xiao family estate. The quiet was unnerving. Even the usual bustle of servants was absent. A vague sense of fear crept into my heart. For some reason, Madame Zhao's grim and sinister expression from the other day flashed through my mind. I stopped in my tracks and pulled out my phone, dialing Cassian. I let the call ring 3 times before hanging up. It was a signal we had picked up from a show we watched together, a way to indicate uncertainty or potential danger. Cassian would understand, and he would come. Chapter 18. A servant escorted me to the main house and left me there. Madame Xiao was seated on the sofa, wearing an elegant frost-colored cheongsam. When she saw me, she smiled warmly and waved me over to join her for tea. Her dignified and gentle demeanor was unchanged, her face full of maternal kindness. For a moment, I doubted myself, wondering if I had been overthinking things. Maybe I had misread her expression that day. Come, Aurelia, have some tea with me. The green tea rippled gently in the cup, its fragrance wafting upward. I picked up the delicate porcelain cup and took a small sip. Madame Zhao suddenly stood. Oh, I nearly forgot your gift. Wait here, and I'll fetch it from upstairs. I rose quickly to follow, but a wave of dizziness struck me. Madame Zhao caught me just in time. Aurelia, what's wrong? You don't look well. Let me help you to a room to rest. It's the same room you stayed in before. It's always been kept ready for you. I tried to respond, but I couldn't keep my eyes open. My body felt heavy, my limbs useless. Through the fog of my fading consciousness, I realized someone else had taken over supporting me. I struggled to open my eyes, to see who it was, but my vision remained blurred. Then, a familiar voice broke through the haze. Aurelia, you're even more beautiful than your mother was at your age. Mr. Xiao? The words hit me like a thunderclap, leaving me paralyzed. But whatever clarity I had was quickly swallowed by the drug coursing through me. The world spun violently as I was shoved onto a bed. The bedroom door closed with a final, ominous click. Chapter 19. Madame Zhao stood downstairs, her back straight, staring at the tightly shut bedroom door. Years ago, Aurelia's mother, Susanna, had been behind that very door. Her screams, cries, and desperate pleas for help still echoed in Madame Zhao's memory. Please, have mercy, save me. But Madame Zhao had not gone upstairs. At that time, her own family had fallen into decline, while Sam's business was thriving, making him arrogant and untouchable. Sam had taken a liking to Susanna, a single mother working at the Xiao estate. She was beautiful and delicate, qualities that stirred his possessive desires. It wasn't Susanna who seduced him. Sam had forced himself on her. Susanna, timid and weak, had initially resisted, even threatening to report him. But Sam had threatened her daughter, Aurelia, and Susanna had quickly given in. Madame Zhao had watched as her husband became more and more obsessed with Susanna. She had hated, resented, cried, and raged. But in the end, she had endured, swallowing her tears with blood. The Xiao family's driver, a distant relative of hers, had been the one to carry out Susanna's death. Madame Zhao had orchestrated it. Sam likely figured it out afterward. He had been furious, hitting her in his rage, But for the sake of Vincent and the Xiao patriarch's orders, their marriage remained intact. Even though they had become bitter enemies, Susanna was dead. To preserve the Xiao family's reputation and her dignity in front of her son, Madame Xiao had twisted the truth. The victim became a shameless woman of ill repute. The murderer, though heavily sentenced, left his family with a substantial fortune to live in luxury. The mastermind herself had walked away untouched, continuing her life of privilege. Then she adopted Susanna's daughter, Aurelia, treating her as though she were her own child. Those who knew the story praised Madame Xiao for her magnanimity, calling her a woman of unparalleled virtue. Even her son, Vincent, respected and sympathized with her. But only Madame Xiao knew the truth. Her heart had long since twisted. She had gone mad. Raising Aurelia, perhaps, had always been leading to this moment. She believed that Susanna's daughter's screams would sound even sweeter than Susanna's had. She couldn't understand how such shameless women could exist. The mother had seduced her husband. The daughter had seduced her son. Initially, Madame Xiao had turned a blind eye, thinking Vincent was simply fooling around. And for 3 years, it had remained a secret, a disposable fling. But now, Vincent wanted to marry her. Even Sam seemed unable to let go of Aurelia, and so Madame Xiao had made her choice. If Aurelia wanted to die, Madame Xiao would not stop her. Chapter 20. Suddenly, the piercing sound of screeching brakes echoed across the estate. Madame Xiao snapped out of her thoughts. Turning sharply, Cassian and Vincent burst into the house almost simultaneously. Racing upstairs, the bedroom door was kicked open. Sam fell off the bed in a panic, disheveled and bruised. When the door swung open, Vincent froze in place. Cassian, take her to the hospital. He stood at the threshold, turning slightly, refusing to look inside. Cassian hesitated for a moment, surprised by Vincent's reaction, but quickly moved forward. He wrapped Aurelia in his coat, cradling her tightly in his arms as he carried her out. She was still unconscious. Cassian covered her as much as he could, shielding her from the cold. Vincent glanced at her briefly, then turned his face away. From under the coat, Aurelia's hand hung limply. Vincent saw the scar on her ring finger, a familiar mark from years ago. But there were new wounds now, bruises and cuts. Her nails broken and bleeding. He couldn't bear to look a second time. The house was silent, deathly silent. It was as if an invisible force had wrapped itself around his heart, suffocating him. Vincent wasn't sure how he made it downstairs. Madame Xiao called his name several times, but he didn't seem to hear her. He walked through the living room and out into the garden, moving like a lifeless shell. He wandered until he stopped. Heavy snow fell, blanketing the entire world. Vincent stood there, letting the snow cover him, until he was completely buried under its weight. Then, his knees buckled, and he collapsed into the snow. The truth hit him like a cruel revelation. What he despised was himself. What he had looked down on should have been his own reflection. The one who truly didn't belong wasn't Aurelia. It was him and the entire Xiao family. For the first time, he felt grateful that the world believed Aurelia had never been with someone like him. Even he was disgusted by the blood running through his veins. Chapter 21. When I woke up, I found myself in a hospital bed. Cassian was sitting by my side, his bloodshot eyes lighting up the moment he saw me awake. Aurelia, you're awake? I nodded gently, my throat aching as if I'd swallowed a handful of charcoal. Are you thirsty? Cassian quickly stood up, mixed some warm honey water, and brought it to my bedside. He carefully lifted me, propping me up against his chest as he helped me drink. You can have some porridge later, he said softly. He touched my forehead lightly, then bent down to kiss me without hesitation. I instinctively looked at him, my gaze filled with unspoken questions. Before I could ask, he seemed to know what was on my mind. Nothing happened, he reassured me. Don't be afraid. After a pause, he added, actually, we owe Vincent this time. If not for him, we wouldn't have made it in time. Leaning against his chest, I slowly turned my face to look out the window. Is it still snowing? The snow has stopped. Tomorrow should be sunny. Aurelia, Cassian said, his voice steady and filled with hope. From now on, every day will be sunny. Chapter 22. with everything settled, and those who deserved punishment receiving it under the impartial weight of the law. I finally felt free. Cassian accompanied me to visit my mother. Her grave had been in a desolate corner of the cemetery, isolated and forgotten. In life, she had been treated with shame. In death, her tragedy had been buried just as unkindly. That plot had been purchased by Madame Xiao, and at the time, I had been deeply grateful. But now, looking back, all I felt was bitter irony. I relocated my mother's ashes from that cemetery. Cassian bought her a new resting place, one with rolling hills, a clear stream, and lush greenery. It was a peaceful haven, blooming with flowers that my mother would have loved. On her birthday, we moved her to her new home. I knelt before her grave for a long time, pouring out my regrets. I begged for forgiveness for resenting her when I was younger, for the times I had even hated her in my heart. No matter how long I knelt, Cassian stayed by my side. Kneeling with me, I began crying, but as the tears subsided, I found myself holding her gravestone and laughing softly. "Mom," I said, "this is Cassian. He's by my side now. He cares about me so much. You don't have to worry about me anymore." Cassian took my hand then, his voice steady and sincere. "Ma'am," he said, his tone full of reverence. "I don't just care about her." The breeze carried the scent of spring grass, swaying in gentle waves. "I love her deeply." His words were like feathers brushing against my heart, soft, bittersweet, but leaving traces of undeniable warmth. I looked up at him, smiling through tears. I told him that I had just made a wish in front of my mother's grave. He wrapped an arm around me, his voice low and tender. "What did you wish for?" I pressed my lips together, smiling slyly. "Old wishes fulfilled, new hopes to come, and I can't say it out loud. If I do, it won't come true." Cassian held me closer, his lips curving into a smile that reached his eyes, soft and brimming with affection. I could tell he was thinking about that night in City B, the moonlight, the way we had been together. That night, he had posted those words on social media. Now, standing by my side, I echoed them softly, just as he had. Extra Vincent. The year Cassian and Aurelia got married, I turned 30. They say 30 is the age when a man should establish himself, a time of ambition and achievement. But for me, turning 30 has already left me lost and directionless. I was the only one left in the Xiao family now. Yet somehow, the family business was thriving more than ever. When they married, I sent a lavish gift. They didn't accept it. I even considered transferring some shares to Aurelia, a meager attempt to compensate her and her mother. But she refused, saying, "Everything my husband owns is already in my name. I don't need anything from you. If you have more money than you know what to do with, Mr. Xiao, perhaps put it toward charity." I listened. Almost half of my assets went toward charitable causes. The accolades poured in: awards, recognition, praise. But I didn't care about any of it. What I wanted was simple, almost within reach. For instance, on a sunny day, I could sit in Aurelia's garden, sharing tea with her, or when she cooked hot pot, I could join her at the table and have a bowl. But deep down, I knew those things would never happen. Once, she said we were just ordinary friends. Now, even being an ordinary friend felt like a dream too far. People often say words can become self-fulfilling prophecies. Why couldn't Aurelia's words have been one of them? Later, Aurelia had a daughter. I heard whispers about the Gu family, about their centuries-old traditions. I wondered, hoped, even, that they might prefer a son, that they might not treat Aurelia's daughter well. But why would they mistreat her? And why was I so despicable as to hope for that? When their daughter was just a month old, Cassian scheduled a tiny, routine surgery for her. It was so minor it shouldn't have been a big deal, but Aurelia cried over it anyway. When did she become so fragile, so prone to tears? When I was sick or injured, she never cried for me. Even when she hurt her hand, losing a chunk of flesh, she bore it without breaking down. That scar on her hand, it was for me. She got that scar protecting me. At the time, Aurelia had shielded me from a broken bottle without hesitation. She must have loved me once, but I threw her away. I lost her. I thought about the rings Cassian gave her, One of them was also an 11.8-carat diamond, yet she rarely wore it. What she wore most often was their wedding band, a simple, elegant Bulgari ring. She didn't bother to hide the scar on her finger. She wore it openly, without shame. After all these years, the only thing I had left her with was that ugly scar. When their daughter turned 3, I placed a large sum of money in a trust for her. When she turned 18, the funds would be hers. Everything else I owned, I donated. At 36, my zodiac year, people said a major trial would come. If you couldn't overcome it, you'd face ruin. I didn't overcome it. To be precise, I created my own trial. On a snowy day in Beijing, I sealed myself in my car, lit some charcoal, and let the fumes take me. In my final dream, Aurelia and I were teenagers again. She and Cassian were sneaking bites of a roasted sweet potato. I watched from the shadows, bitter and envious of her happiness. But this time, I didn't keep hiding. I ran toward her, grabbing her hand tightly. Hurry, Aurelia! If we don't go back now, your mother will die. I pulled her, running and running, until we broke free of fate. In that dream, I changed everything. I saved her and her mother. Aurelia went on to be with Cassian, their love growing quietly until they revealed it to their families in college. They were blessed with support, joy, and understanding. They married, had their daughter, and lived a beautiful, peaceful life. And in that lifetime, I was nothing more than her ordinary friend. Only that, forever.